till this day, I just think it's so crazy. I feel like my grandma was there, that she was there in spirit, and so that's, it gave me a sign that it's like, she was here for it, and I believe that our dead are not dead to us until we have forgotten them.
Hola y bienvenidos. Welcome to Mely Mama Cooking with Love. You're about to join us for our weekly adventure where we chat with chefs and foodies and food bloggers who are helping us to connect and learn. I'm super excited because this is a very special episode that you're about to listen to. We interviewed 3 amazing bloggers to talk to us about Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. It's a very special holiday in the Mexican community in Mexico, and it is happening very soon on November 2nd. And we wanted you to be prepared if you decide to celebrate this holiday. And so I rounded up some guests that I've talked to before. They gave us their insights, their tips, experiences that they've had with this holiday. And I'm sure you're going to want to listen to them and learn more. So first up, we're going to be talking to Mely Martinez from Mexico in My Kitchen. We'll move to Yvette Marquez Sharpnack from Muy Bueno Cooking, and then we'll be chatting with Our Supper Stories, Andrea. So you have a lot to learn, a lot to important, I think, information about the holiday, tips on how to celebrate if you've never done so before, and maybe if you're already celebrating, so maybe some new things you can think about. I never grew up celebrating this holiday and just started participating the last few years. I just wanted to share with you before we bring these special ladies on for you to listen to some of my experiences. The very first time that I went to one, this is a holiday that celebrates those that have died, but it's solemn but respectful, but it is a way to share stories of our loved ones. There's usually an altar, so I brought a picture of my mother who died a few years ago, and I got to share with my cousins and my primas and my primos about some of the wonderful memories that I had of my mother. And it was a very healing experience. It was also so wonderful to hear from others about their loved ones. And then there was lots of amazing food because everybody brought something to share. One of their favorite dishes that loved one loved. I remember bringing my mom's crunchy pork mole. It's the very first one I went to. But you're going to learn a lot more in a few moments. And I hope that you will consider celebrating Dia de los Muertos. Even if you're not Latino, it's okay. Because I think we all need the space to stay connected to those that have died, and to remember the love that we had for them and that they had for us. So with that, here we go. So now we're going to be chatting with Mely from Mexico in My Kitchen. She has been a guest before, and she is a remarkable woman who has an outstanding blog. And if you haven't already, you must go check it out now, and her Instagram account. She is a native from Mexico and grew up celebrating this very special holiday. So Millie, welcome, and I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy for you to invite me.
You're welcome. So I believe that you grew up celebrating Dia de los Muertos in Mexico as a young girl and a young woman. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about those experiences in Mexico?
Yes, usually we will go to my grandma's farm in the state of Veracruz, in the northern part of the state of Veracruz, and it was a 3 day 3 day thing. It was because you start October the 31st at noon. Some of the churches ring the bells at noon, and so letting people know that the souls of the children are coming, and people are preparing for that day. And my grandma has a farm which she has a plantation, like an acre of banana trees.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she will do in one of the rooms, the biggest rooms of the house. She will make an altar, and she will cut banana trees, the whole plant, and then she will remove the leaves of the banana trees, and she will lay down the trunks of the banana trees to make like a path when you enter the house to the end where it was the altar. But the trunks will be laying down in the floor, and it will have a hole, different holes, and in each hole there were big candles, and each candle, it represents someone that died, someone from the family that died. And the altar, in the farms, not everybody has what they call here papel picado, the colorful paper that is cut in many shapes. People will usually use flowers, like the regular orange, like cempasúchil,
Right.
the marigolds, and the flowers that they have in their gardens. But the people in the farm, the way they decorate is with the branches of the trees they have. So my grandma has orange trees or tangerine trees. So they will go, my uncles or cousin will go and cut those branches, and the branches still have the fruit hanging from the branches. So they cut huge branches. So they make like a huge arc, and the arc will be the frame of the altar with all the fruit hanging from there. And then you will put the pictures of the people that pass and the candles, and the food that they like it, and like they work in the farms, they will put some of their working utensils. And but it, it was something very solemn. Is that the word to say?
Hmm.
Is that correct? I'm
Yeah.
saying it correct
No, you
about
are.
solemn thing.
You are.
Yeah, because
Yes.
as a young girl, I you entered that place, and I remember it to be kind of dark because in November it gets kind of gloomy and raining in that area. Uh, and you enter in that place, and it's like very ceremonial. Yeah, the man of the house usually, at least in the family, they will kill a huge pig, and they will spend the whole day, killing the pig and cooking the pig, like cooking chicharrones, and then the women of the house will cook several dishes that are made using the organs of the pork, and then at night they will keep cooking. They will make tamales, and they will make corn cookies that it are called coricos in some part of the country, but in the part of the country where I am, they are called pemoles. And so it was a whole day of cooking for them, like a whole day of cooking.
Oh my goodness, but that meant you had like a lot of eating too, and it sounds
Yeah.
like amazing
Yeah,
food.
because you know what? Because at the end of the day, the November 2 and the next day, November 3, people will go to your houses, and especially November 2, people will go to your houses. It's like they were visiting your loved ones that passed away. You will go out of respect to their house to visit their altar, and you will go and stay there, maybe say a prayer, talk about the dead people, that the people that passed away, and then when they were leaving, you will give them something to take home, and then you will tell them this is what they left for you, meaning the people that are already dead. They say this is what they left for you. So, and then you will go to other people's houses. When you're a kid, you don't know. It's like, you don't know better. Like, okay, let's go to the house of somebody else to see what they have to eat, what they have to eat. Uh, because you know that you're gonna go there, you're gonna go see the altar, just gonna spend a little time there, and before you leave, they're gonna give you something to take with you, some food to
I
take with you.
what a
So
wonderful
it's
tradition.
very different in rural areas, and usually most people will make tamales. They will make atoles, coffee, and at night after the rosary, the men will get all will be together, and maybe they will be drinking, maybe they will have coffee with some uh, aguardiente or some rum or brandy in that coffee. Um, but those are the customs in those rural areas, as it's very different that in the city. Like in the city, my hometown is like a huge, uh, I don't know how to say it, romeria. Yeah, but it's like a big party with a lot of people at the cemetery, because I have friends that are musicians. And when it's the November 2, they go to the cemetery with their the music instrument, and they go play it, and they go visit all their friends, and they sing and they play the music there, and they spend the whole day there, and they take food with them, and they play music. So it's a mix of emotions, because of course you get a little bit sad because you remember them, but you are always think about the nice times. People try always to think about the good times and the good things that they remember about the people that is no longer with us.
That is so beautiful. Now, all the research that I've done and everybody I've talked to, nobody told me about going to other people's homes in the rural areas.
No,
And that is
yeah. Even in
lovely.
the city, but like where I am from, people still like, oh, let's go to somebody else's house. Let's go see the altar. Let's see what they put and what they, especially what they cook this year, what they cook today, and that is a big part of the Day of the Dead. It's not just all the symbolisms about putting the water, the salt, the pan de muerto, the bread, and the food and the pictures, but there is a lot of things that people pass down from generation to generation without even telling you how to do it. You learn just by watching. You know that you have to go, that you have to bring something to put in the altar, and it doesn't have to be very complicated or expensive with a lot of decorations. For me, I see like people is overdoing it nowadays, putting like they put the skulls and colorful skulls and things like that. If you go to Mexico to a regular house, you won't see that many of the things. Of course, you will see the little sugar skulls.
Right.
Those sugar skulls, they represent each one of the people that died. You just put one for each one that passed away. And usually you go by them, and they have the name of the person. You buy the one that has the name of the person that passed away. I feel that nowadays there is a lot of marketing and a lot of, I don't know, the people are trying to explode the holiday to benefit themselves from them. I have mixed feelings about that, because it's a beautiful celebration. It has a pre-Hispanic background, and I'm happy that people is still embracing and that they are teaching them to the children, because, like they say, to know where we are going, we have to know where we're coming from. And it's nice that they know that the new generations, that they know about our culture. But I wish people will research more, or at least go to Mexico and spend at least one time in their life with a family, not just to the places that they do now, more commercial.
Right.
Yeah, with a real family, like real Mexican family. Like, what do they do? Yeah, some people will just put flowers and candles, and that's it, and the picture of the person that passed away. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I was talking to some of my other guests is that, anybody can do this and you can start anywhere. and it can
Mm-hmm.
be, you're talking, very simple, because
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love, when I went to my first celebration a few years ago, I just loved hearing about the stories of,
Mm-hmm.
my primos and primas, and
Yeah.
I remember some I knew, some I didn't, and having the opportunity to share about my mother, that connection and that community, I loved that. Just
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah. I put a small altar for my dad and for my grandma. Sometimes I don't take it away right away.
Mhm.
And last year, my son is 24 years old, and I asked him, "Oh, I forgot I had to take the altar." He said, "Oh no, leave it. I like it. I like that you do that. I like to have it." They go, well, but we believe that they come and visit us. That's what we believe. That we believe that is when they come and visit and stay with us, and we remember that there is a way for us to always have them with us.
That is so lovely, so beautiful. So let me ask you, you're celebrating today. You just explained that, but did you ever have an experience where you're like, oh, that was the best food that somebody gave me to take with me? Or do you have any memories like that?
Mm. Well, I think that it's, it's more like the feeling, the sense that to go to their places, to the houses, is like in a movie. It's like actually that you go into a movie because the smell of the incense, the incienso, uh, the candles, the cempasúchil flowers. Usually, it's cold or maybe rainy or humid days in Mexico for days day, and all that is a combination of aromas and smell. You just smell that, it gives you a sense of something very special. Even though I try to recreate that here, I can because it's not the same. I try, I try, but I think that that feeling that you get, that is something very ceremonial, and that people is sitting there, and maybe the way my grandma did it, that it was like a path, an entrance, that you go there and you see all the candles and see all the flowers and the fruit hanging from the branches. Is something that stick with you like forever. And funny thing, my older brother, he lives in Chiapas, and he does that. I didn't know about that, but last year he sent me a picture of his altar. And like, oh my God, you have become my grandma because he said, oh yeah, I went to somebody's house and told him, you know what, I need to cut some branches of your tree because with the fruit hanging, because I wanted to do it just like my grandma did it. So it's more about that moment, that instant, that feeling that you have, that particular moment that you get a connection, that you are visiting that person that you love. So, oh, I feel right now, I feel like I'm smelling the incense.
Well, I feel like I'm there with you. You've done such a lovely job of explaining how it was and how you felt about it. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I'm so grateful that you accepted my invitation so that we could talk to you about this.
Yeah, but I wish people, even though they live in another country, and they try at least to preserve a little bit of this tradition and pass it on to their children. It's a beautiful tradition. You don't have to put too much, just the picture, to cook something they like it, and put a candle, a glass of water, a little bit of salt, and something sweet, flowers, and because it's like a celebration. It's a celebration of a life. It's a celebration of a memory and all the love they gave us. It's a visit. It's for us to have a time to visit with them.
That is so, so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Well, I am going to host my very first one ever in my home. I've only gone to other people's house, so this is going to be my first one this year.
Yeah, just make some tamales in advance. Some hot chocolate or some champurrado, and uh, and uh, and tell stories about your people, the people that you love, and
Yes.
uh, and always always we try to remember the nice time, the nice things, and I I don't say a rosary, but we just say a small prayer, and I always like to tell my son about my dad because he didn't met my dad, so I always tell him, and my son always. I think it's a good time to tell him about that, and I always say, I wish I met my grandpa. He sound like he was such a great guy. Yeah, but I wish every culture has something like that because I think it's really neat that we have it. I think very special in Mexico because we do have it.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us today. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners? I've already told them they have to go to your website because it's amazing, your blog, Mexico in My Kitchen. It's got
Hmm.
so many great recipes and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just remember that. November 1st is for the children, is when if somebody has a child die in the family, is a way to put the candy, the fruit, the white flowers for them. And November 2nd is for the grown-ups. And it's a good time for everybody to remember those people and to bring them back to life for one day.
All right. Okay, well, I will let you know how my celebration goes. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mely. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate it.
So thank you for inviting me.
Now we're going to be chatting with Yvette Marquez Sharpnack from Muy Bueno Cooking. She is a remarkable blogger. She has over 800 recipes on her blog. She's an Emmy Award winning video artist, photographer, writer. So please join us for our special conversation with Yvette from Muy Bueno Cooking. And she is here today to talk to us about Dia de los Muertos. So, hola, Yvette, and welcome to Mole Mama.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you have so many amazing resources for all of us who are trying to learn more about this fabulous celebration. So, do you want to start telling us a little bit about like the videos and everything that you have so that our listeners could go and visit your website and learn some of these amazing traditions?
Yeah, so my blog is muybuenocookbook.com. And one of my favorite holidays, my favorite celebrations is Dia de los Muertos. And I have my blog broken out by different categories. You can even go through the category and go straight to Dia de los Muertos and find all kinds of recipes, cocktails, crafts, videos. I mean, you name it, I'm all about honoring, especially my grandma and all my loved ones who have passed away in with something special that reminds me of them.
Now, your videos that you have, like I said, I've watched them all. And can you go into a little bit about them for our listeners? Because I think they're worth watching every single one of them, and I teared up at them, and I learned a whole bunch. So, do you want to share a little bit more details about what they are and what our listeners could learn from watching them?
Sure. I have a YouTube channel and it's youtube.com/ muy bueno cooking. And there I have all kinds of videos, but I do have a few lifestyle videos celebrating Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. And it all started, one of my first videos was one where my daughter was getting her makeup done. And that was the very first time that she had her makeup done as a Catrina. And it was kind of funny now that I'm thinking about it, because my son at the time was only I want to say 7 years old, and he was, and he still is deathly afraid of clowns. and And he walked in and saw my daughter, who's 6 years older, in full on makeup, and just freaked out. He didn't understand it. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to really educate him and make sure that, of course, my daughter already understood the holiday, but children who are growing up might not understand what this is all about. So in that initial video, it was about how to celebrate your loved ones at home. I know a lot of people don't know what the holiday is all about, but the main theme is to celebrate and honor our deceased loved ones. And so in that video, my daughter made traditional champurrado, which is like a chocolate hot atole, and she had her makeup done. So every element of her face painting, shares what those symbolisms mean. And then placing the hot chocolate on this home altar that we made. So every year, me and my kids put together an altar, and we honor both my grandmas. My father-in-law recently passed away, so we'll be honoring him as well this year. And so my son just asked me yesterday, can we make a new video to honor Papa? And so we're really trying to figure out how we can make that happen. But if anything, we're going to be having an altar and having special things that remind us of him. So it's a great way to keep memories alive of those that we have lost. So yeah, there's that video, and then they've just kind of progressed as the years have gone. And I have two other videos, one that was narrated by my daughter a couple years later, and it's all about all the traditions about Dia de los Muertos and why she likes to celebrate the holiday. And then the last video that we produced, my son, who was initially very scared and didn't understand the holiday, and narrated it. And so he's so proud of that holiday. And it's so cute because he educates his friends all the time about what the holiday is all about. And that video actually won an Emmy. so so it's really exciting to know that something that was so special to us got recognized.
And that's what was really wonderful for me when I watch those videos, is that you're using children from their perspective to share what they've learned about this holiday. And clearly, you've done a really great job educating them. And I just think seeing it through their eyes is so incredibly beautiful. So thank you for doing those. And the other video that I watched that I was, besides all the ones you mentioned,
Mhm.
you actually have, you show a recipe and a way to make the sugar skulls.
Yes.
It's so easy that I was like tempted. I'm like, oh, that doesn't look hard. So can you share with our listeners the significance of the sugar skulls?
Yes, they're actually very easy to make. And now, because Dia de los Muertos is very mainstream in the US, you can find the sugar skull molds on Amazon or at, Michael's craft stores. And it's just using the mold, and you make a mixture of water with sugar. Um, and it's they harden and they dry. And then once they're dry, then you just remove them from the molds. The one thing I'm always asked is if they're edible, and they're not edible. They're a decorative item that go on your home altar. And what they're signify is the person that you're honoring, and it's supposed to represent happiness. So that's why they're so colorful and so vibrant, and you can decorate them with royal icing. And so you actually can write the name of the person you're honoring on their forehead, just so that they know, so that you know who it is that you're honoring. You can even, if that person wears glasses, make little glasses on the sugar skull. So it's supposed to be happy and represent the departed soul.
That's absolutely beautiful. And they'd even decorated some of them with feathers. They were just so festive and so beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, because you have clearly a lot of information about Dia de los Muertos, and you've done such a great job educating your children and pulling them into this holiday. But when did you first start celebrating it?
I didn't start celebrating until I started my blog. So I started my blog in 2010, and that's when I was really starting to research the history of my culture. And it wasn't something that we grew up celebrating at all. But I do remember when I was a little girl going to the cemetery with my grandma, and it was always during the fall. And I remember walking to our local cemetery that was like 2 blocks away from our house. And I just remember it would always creep me out as a little girl, walking to this very old cemetery. And this cemetery till this day is still looks very, very old. There's no gravestones. There's just wooden crosses. And I remember always going with my grandma, and she would hold my hand, and she would, get flowers from her garden, and we'd walk to the cemetery, and she would look for her angelitos. She lost two babies when they were very young. So one was not even a year, and the other one was 2 years old. And I just remember asking her, how they passed away. And I think in those times they just didn't know. She just said they got very sick and they died. And so I just remember it must have been Dia de los Muertos. It just wasn't something that we celebrated. And so there's Dia de los Angelitos, which is November 1st, and then Dia de los Muertos, November 2nd. So on November 1st is when you honor any children who passed away early. And so that's, I guess I could say, that I celebrate it since I was young, but it was never described to me that way. I just knew that we went to the cemetery during that time of year.
That's a beautiful story, though, even though it wasn't a formal celebration of just a memory that you had with your grandmother and what she used to do with you. How lovely. And then, so when you got started the first year, what did you do? Did you do this big elaborate celebration, or did you start small? How did you get going?
Um, I remember we were learning about just different elements, and I wanted to teach my daughter. So she was, 8 years old. And so we started off making Papel Picado. So it's the paper garland that you cut out. And I just remember when we were doing it, reminded me of, being in elementary school and making snowflakes. So it's very similar on how you just cut up paper. And we did that, and we decorated a little home altar. And so we did that, about 2010. And it was so funny because now that I remember, my husband took a picture of her and I in front of the altar, and we both just kind of did our own little home makeup, as Day of the Dead, and back then, it wasn't, you know, phone cameras. It was just, it was a digital camera. But I remember when I printed it, it was so crazy because there's an orb like right in between us. And till this day, I just think it's so crazy. I feel like my grandma was there, that she was there in spirit. And so that's, gave me a sign that it's like, she was here for it. And, I believe that our dead are not dead to us until we have forgotten them. And that was my sign that, she's still with us.
What a great story. You got an orb on a digital camera. Wow,
Mhm.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you. It is
You do.
really crazy.
That's amazing. Now, when you celebrate, does everybody take somebody and share their story? And is it happy stories? How do you do that part of the celebration?
So that same year, we did a photo shoot, and at the time, we made a really beautiful altar and just put out all the foods that remind me of my grandma, and also put out photos of my grandparents and uncles and everybody that that I know that has passed away. And so we celebrate different ways in different years, but what we try and do is the number one thing is to make the time to just share photographs and talk about them. So whether we do this in front of the altar or whether we just do this around the dinner table, um, that's the main thing that I want to make sure that we don't forget to do.
And when you share those stories, are they stories of how they passed on, or are they stories of their life?
Never about, of their passing. It's all memories that are special to me or special to my children, depending who we're talking about. I think it's going to be really hard this year talking about my father-in-law who just passed away because it's somebody who my children were close to. It's their first person that they knew that, and I know they'll have some special stories. So that's the point, is to share your memories and share those happy stories.
And I think it's so important because you're giving your children, you're giving your family a space to talk about that. Because I don't think that our culture, at least in the US, we do a great job of that. It's
Yes, I
very hard.
agree. I agree because I went to my son's school. I've gone a couple times to a Spanish class to talk to kids, and I just love hearing from children because their mind is so fresh. They're so sincere. They're ask very inquisitive questions that I would have never thought about. There was one little girl I remember saying, so don't know anybody who died, but my dog died, can I celebrate him? And I was like, yes, of
Oh,
course. So it's just really cute that these kids want to celebrate somebody that they knew or they loved, and want to figure, then they saw how beautiful it was. And so she was so excited. She's like, I can't wait to go home and tell my mom about this. And there was another little boy who said, my mom was pregnant, but she lost her baby and she doesn't like for us to talk about it. But do you think if I tell her this, maybe it'll make her happy and we can celebrate him? And it just, like, it was hard for me, not to get emotional, because I was like, it's up to you, how you feel, and maybe talk to your mom about it. Maybe this is a way to show her that there's that there is happiness in this and that you can talk about it. So different cultures might think it's crazy, but I think at the same time, it's a very healing holiday. It's hard not to mourn the passing of somebody, but I think it's a nice time to reflect on all those happy memories of who they were and what they did and what you did together. And sometimes we forget about that because it's easy to focus on the sadness.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think of the celebrations that I've gone to, because I didn't grow up celebrating it either. That's what I'm always left with is the stories and,
Hmm.
how people share. And it almost helps you, even if it's somebody you've never met before, have a connection to that person and know the person that's sharing that story a little bit more because of how they speak of somebody that they've lost and how much they meant to them, and some fun stories. And it's also for me because I'm so into food. I always want to know, like, why did they like that food? And and I've seen people even bring candy bars and
Hmm.
alcohol and all different
Yeah.
things. So it's just fantastic. It's just another way to connect. Um, and to provide a space for, just like you said, really good memories. Now there's another quote on your videos that you like to share about this holiday, and I'm going to get it wrong, so I need you to say it
Hmm.
because it's about the living. So can you share that with our listeners, because it's so well said.
Oh no! Now I have to figure out which one it is.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot
I
because it's
know.
because I always thought that it was about celebrating. It is about celebrating our the dead and our ancestors, but there's a way that I think something about we celebrate their lives, not their.
Yes, something that we celebrate their lives, not their death. I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's so well
Yeah,
said. I'm
and it's
sorry.
an anonymous quote that I found, and that's something that, I believe is very true, that it's, basically that our dead are not dead to us. Um, Let me think. How did it go? How did it go? I can't remember.
Okay, I think we got the we got the point across, Charlotte. You can go to their website. It's right there. It's beautiful, though. I'm sorry, I should have had it prepped up.
Sorry, I didn't do my homework.
That's our homework on my show. But I know that we're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners about this holiday?
I think, definitely celebrate it. Look into it. You don't have to do an extreme altar. This year, I'm going to organize a photo shoot, and it'll be more about the elements of an altar, because there's so much symbolism to each element, that even when I first started, putting an altar together, I didn't know that there were so many symbolisms. But there's, you want a water element, you want an earth element, you want a fire element, you want, the marigolds are the scent. So, I mean, there's so many different elements that really make up an altar, that would be fun for anybody to celebrate, and just take the time to honor those that we love who have passed on. It doesn't matter what your religion is, what your culture is, but I think anybody can do that.
Thank you for that, and I absolutely agree. So I agree. I want to invite everyone to celebrate this holiday. Anybody that's lost somebody, because I do think there is such great healing in it, and
Mm-hmm.
connection with those that are still here, and it connects us to one another. So it's a great way to do that. So
Yeah, and
and when
even if it's not an altar, then it's, something that reminds you of them, whether it's, a favorite dish that that they love, take the time to make it, and enjoy it in their honor.
it's beautiful. Okay. So when will your photo shoot be up on your website so we can come and look at all these elements and learn more about them?
Well, God willing, it doesn't snow on us. that's, that's what I'm praying for right now, because it will be an outdoor shoot. So I'm thinking before the end of the month is the goal,
Okay.
um, just in time so that folks can understand and celebrate it. So in right before Dia de los Muertos.
Okay. And I forgot one last thing. When do you put up your altar? Do you put it up the week before, a couple of days before? When does it go up?
I usually do it at least a week to 2 weeks before,
Okay.
and not every single element, but at least start it. So, whether it's just placing, trying to figure out where it is, I usually place it in our living room, and just, add in elements. And I have so much stuff that it's like, as I'm walking through the house, it's like, oh, I'm going to put this on my altar. so, so I'm always adding to it, and then a day or two before is when I add fresh flowers in my food and my drinks and my candles. So it's an evolution, but it's so funny because I'm actually going to be traveling on Dia de los Muertos. So I was just telling my daughter, I was like, you need to light the candles and you need to fill a water glass. Like, I will, Mom, I will.
Everybody needs to come. I need to know that
Yeah.
he's going to come, even if I'm not here.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Yvette, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing all your wonderful wisdom and knowledge about this wonderful holiday. And I wish you well. I'm going to pray for no snow. I don't know if I can help, but I'll be praying for you. And even if it does snow, I know that the photos are going to be amazing. So I look forward to seeing them.
Thank you so much.
Our last guest is Andrea from Our Supper Stories. Andrea also celebrates Dia de los Muertos. But what is so special about her is she is a Caucasian woman who married a Latino, a Mexican man, and they have three beautiful brown babies. And she started celebrating this holiday in her home to help her children become more connected to their Mexican heritage. And also, she has a very special plan for how she's going to celebrate this year that I'm sure you're going to hear all about. So I'm so excited to speak to Andrea from our supper stories. She is one of my Latina, I don't know what to call you, but you're a Latina bridge for sure. And I'm just so excited to be able to talk to you about Dia de los Muertos because I know that you have married into our culture, and I'm delighted that you're a part of it. And I just wanted to talk to you today about how you started celebrating Dia de los Muertos, or how did you even find out about it?
Well, first of all, I'm really excited to be here, Diana, because I absolutely love chatting with you. I always feel like we're like sitting across the table from each other. So this is always really fun for me. So thank you. And I started celebrating, interestingly enough, because I got curious about it. My husband did not grow up celebrating. My husband is Mexican American, did not grow up celebrating Dia de los Muertos. His family didn't celebrate, or at least his mother didn't. And as so much of his, with so much from his cultural background, he lost a lot of it in the name of assimilation. And so there was a lot of things that I was curious about so that our children would have these experiences. And so I was the one who brought it up. And the first one we celebrated was so super simple. It was a picture of my grandmother because she was really the only person we had collectively lost at that point. Well, I had lost her years before I met him, but he fortunately hadn't really lost anyone in his life. And so it was a picture of my grandmother, and I bought her a bouquet of roses from Walmart. And my grandmother died on Thanksgiving when I was a kid. So I put them up kind of as an homage to Dia de los Muertos. But I figured I would leave her flowers all month long until Thanksgiving. And I put those flowers up, and they lasted the entire month without turning brown. And every year after that, our ofrenda got bigger because I realized it was something so special, and it really helped me feel connected to her. And of course, those flowers lasting over 4 weeks um, was just amazing to me, um, and motivated me to continue sort of celebrating and expanding on it.
That is a beautiful story. So it's grown. And
Yeah.
so now what is it?
Um, well, now it's usually because unfortunately we've lost so many people in the last few years that were really close to us. It's essentially an entire wall in my house. I usually move all the furniture out and I do an entire wall. Last year, we celebrated at a local museum and did a 10 by 10 structure. Actually built a big outdoor ofrenda um, for the museum celebration. But this year, I'm actually moving it outside. This is our first year in our new house. And our neighborhood is predominantly Mexican. And so my goal is we have a little outdoor patio. It's not little, it's actually pretty big. And it's going to be probably 10 to 15 feet long. And I'm going to open it up to the entire community. So I'll be passing out like pan de muerto and tamales and maybe champurrado, and just invite my neighbors to come and join and celebrate with us.
That is so beautiful. So you're doing an altar,
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting pictures out and you're cooking special food. It sounds like you're going to be making tamales and
Mm-hmm.
other food, and you're going to share. That's just a fabulous thing. So are your children participating in this too?
Absolutely. All week leading up to Dia de los Muertos, we make a ton of sugar skulls and decorate them together. They help me make paper flowers. One year we couldn't find Simpasuchil, the marigolds. We couldn't find them anywhere. And my kids sat with me in the living room and made like 150 paper marigolds with me so that we could make a garland and decorate the whole ofrenda because I couldn't find the marigolds anywhere. But they'll make sugar skulls with me, like I said. They'll help me make the food. We start prepping the food at the beginning of the week because, tamales can be a lot of work.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and then the day that we build the ofrenda, they're in on it with me, and they understand the symbolism. They understand the three tiers. They understand why we put what we put. They know that like the elements all need to be represented. And it's just a really beautiful thing because in telling the stories of everyone we put, all the pictures we put up, and the different treats and the favorites of the people that we love, we retell the same stories every year. So my kids are able to feel like they know people that maybe they were too young to remember when they passed away or never knew, like my grandmother that I mentioned earlier. They may have never met them and never knew them, but their stories stay alive because as we're building the ofrenda and putting up pictures and putting out their favorite treats, they're getting to know them. And because they're repeated every year, they retain them. So my kids feel this really immense connection to all these people in their bloodline because their stories are heard over and over again.
That is so beautiful. Andrea, can you share for our listeners the three tiers and what the meaning behind that and the elements so that anybody listening who's never done this before, to just help them understand the meaning behind it?
Yeah, so the elements are all represented. This goes back to indigenous times. So, for example, the pan de muerto represents the earth because the wheat, the bread, is a gift from the earth. The candles would represent fire. The wind is one of my favorites because that's why you'll find the papel picado. And so I always hang papel picado over the top of the ofrenda. And then water, of course, can really just be a glass of water or the water in the flower vases or what have you. But we always put out a little glass of water as an homage to my husband's grandfather because his grandma always leaves him a glass of water on his headstone. And so I thought it was just such a sweet little thing that she thinks of the little details for him. And so we always leave water in a thermos that is similar to one he would have carried at work. So, so that's the elements. And then the three levels, there are three tiers of an ofrenda, and at the top of the ofrenda, so there's three, it kind of, you can like stair step it. So there would be maybe like flowers at the bottom to, it's supposed to be that the cempasúchil, the smell of the cempasúchil would entice them. The candles also tend to be at the bottom. The elements are involved in how you tier them. So it could be like the pan would be close to the earth. The wind is the papel picado at the top. And then the candles and the water, of course, would be more towards the center, although some people tend to put the candles on the bottom. But I don't necessarily follow the rules super strictly, but it's just nice to have like all the references.
And so everything you're doing is basically to welcome your loved ones back for one night.
Right.
So, in addition to honoring their memory.
Right. Right. And that's the legend of the cempasúchil, is that the aroma of the marigolds would entice them to come.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's such a beautiful tradition. And I, like your husband, did not grow up celebrating it. We were really close to family, and we always had pictures of people that had passed and lit candles for them and all that type of thing. But it wasn't something that we did. And I've just started doing it in the last few years, and I love it. I think it's such a beautiful tradition.
Absolutely.
So, and I think it's so beautiful that you have embraced it and are helping your children to learn about, their ancestors. So in the cooking, I'm going to go back there. Is there anything that you make that you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to make that, but I'm making it because somebody really liked it?
That's an interesting question. It's not so much. I will say that the pan de muerto, I love it. I love making it, but you have to plan ahead because the dough has to sit overnight and the whole thing. And because our ofrenda is so vast and we have so many people on it at this point, and everyone, I'm for some reason I'm like hyper aware of what everyone's favorite was. It's more the task of procuring it all,
Okay.
and making sure everyone has something, and all of that. That's another thing that goes like that's what the second tier is for, is like those treats and the foods. So those are like that second tier gets really full really really fast because I am such a food person. That's like very important to me that everyone has their favorites. And so it's more the challenge of like not forgetting anything, making sure everybody gets something, and that it's all displayed really well. But yeah, I think the pan de muerto, as much as I love it, that's the only thing where I'm like, okay, I really have to plan this out and not forget to start it because if you don't do it in time, it's just too late.
Okay. Well, and I know that you've done cafecito, you've done chocolate, and I
Mm-hmm.
know some of the ones I've been to, people will do a shot of tequila, they'll do M&Ms, like so not every, it's just like you said, making sure that everyone has something. So, do you have any tips for somebody that might be listening to this episode and it's like, I'd really love to start this for my family? What would your advice be as just a place to start?
I think my advice as a person who married into the culture, who has no ownership or sort of like rights to the culture herself, um, my advice would be that it can be for you too, and that it's something, especially if you have a multicultural family. Which if you don't, I still totally think it's a beautiful tradition to honor loved ones and pass on their stories. And I'm big on people's stories, but I think that if, particularly if you're a multicultural home, if maybe you're married into, maybe if you're like me and you're a white girl and you're married into Mexican culture, it's more than okay for you to participate. I think sometimes we're afraid that we're going to, maybe be offensive or like try and do something that doesn't belong to us. But I think coming at it from a place of respect and really recognizing that it's a beautiful tradition and custom that we really, as moms, I think, have a responsibility to pass on to our kids, regardless of what our background is. I have a responsibility, I feel like I have a responsibility to my kids to pass this on. And so it's really something that you can absolutely participate in. It's something really beautiful to do. And if you can just simplify it to something where on the top, you put the beautiful pictures of the people you love. In the middle, you put their favorite treats. And on the bottom, you put some flowers and candles. Then you're honoring tradition. You're respecting the way that it's been done for ages. And you're passing on something really beautiful.
That's great recommendation, Andrea. I love that. And you talk about the stories and the ones that I've gone to. I absolutely loved that everyone that was present who had a loved one that passed on went in front of the entire group and held their picture and told the story of their loved one. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just so meaningful. And are you doing that as well with all of your loved ones?
Absolutely. I think really just being able to pass on those stories and experiences, and like even sometimes it's just like funny silly stories or funny little memories. Last year was particularly special because I had dedicated the ofrenda that we built at the museum to the lives of lost lives of immigrants. And I was really super honored to feature some of your family on that altar. And it was so precious to me to be able to feel like for a moment I knew your family too. And I think that's what stories do. I never met your mom or your tias or your grandma or anyone. But there was a moment where in honoring their lives and telling their stories and showing that beautiful picture of them that you shared with me of them in the fields, um, connected me to people that I may not have known. But the value of their story allowed me to be a part of that for just a moment. And I think the weight of that in a really precious way is something to be honored and respected.
Okay, so now you made me get all teary eyed. So
Oh,
so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and I was so thrilled that we were included in that. So thank you. And
Thank you for your support.
oh, it was fantastic. And like I said at the beginning, I'm just so delighted that you married into us. It's been
Me too.
it's so fabulous, and I love that you're passing these traditions on, learning about them first of all, and now passing them on to your children. And the way that you have embraced our culture and just been a bridge is just such a lovely thing to see, Andrea. So thank you. And thanks again. I just want to thank you for coming today and talking to us about what you're doing. And I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful Dia de los Muertos with your loved ones.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I always love being here, and it was one of my favorite topics to talk about. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful time celebrating in your home too.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Mole Mama Cooking with Love. I hope that you decide to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. And as my mama always said to me as we said our goodbyes, may God bless you all. And remember to add the most important ingredient to every recipe you make, your love. Thank you for tuning in to Mole Mama Cooking with Love.